Hi, I'm Glenn Llopis. So many times I'm asked, why do you care so much about the Hispanic community? I mean, what is it that has made you invest your life into helping grow and advance Hispanics? It's really one thing. The one thing that I learned after the wisdom that my father shared with me as a young boy and throughout my career. See, I wanted to be a leader when I learned that my culture gives me a competitive advantage. Let me repeat that. When I learned that my culture can give me a competitive advantage, that's when I wanted to lead. And when I saw what it did for me in a career in corporate America as well as an entrepreneur, I said, how can I take my experiences? How can I take everything that I've learned in my journey to help Hispanics by having them be more mindful of what can enable higher performance, greater opportunity, and good fortune if they just held on to their cultural roots? So a little bit about myself, just so you know who I am and where I come from. So I was born in Southern California in this city by the name of Monrovia, the smoggiest city in America. And as I grew up as a young boy, I grew up the son of two Cuban immigrants who lost their country from Castro's Cuba and who had to reinvent themselves many, many times before calling the United States their home. And when I learned that culture gave me competitive advantage, I learned it by not one event, but a series of events. And I'd love to share them with you. You see, when I was about 10 years old, and I'll never forget this, having my cafecito with my dad, he said, "Son, in this country, in this great United States, there's one thing that you're never taught." And when he started even having the conversation, I can never forget it because I was so young and naive and didn't even know where he was going. He said, "You don't learn about survival. You live survival." And he said, I had to start all over. I had to start my life over. And thankfully, I had the opportunities to start my life over. And because, son, don't forget this. We're going to do everything we can to support you and your career. And I grew up, just so you know, in a very middle-class family. What we had is tenacity, hope, and tremendous passion to see opportunities all around us. And I know that that's true because the stories that my father shared with me and what he had to do to come here to the United States and raise a family was tremendous. I mean, the sacrifices. And I mean, think about your own story. I mean, you are a byproduct of sacrifice. Every Hispanic is. What Hispanic do you know that hasn't had to sacrifice, that hasn't had to fight for opportunity? And that's what I believe I am a byproduct of parents that had to fight for opportunity, struggle for their independence, and hope for a better life. And my dad would always try, and to this day I still have them. Sits right next to me. Right next to me are these cassettes that he gave me. They were about hope, and they were about if you just believe in yourself, the magic that can happen, the things that can happen to you if you just believe that you're capable of doing anything. And my father had to feel that way. And believe me, by the way, real quick, my dad's 96 years old. 96. They didn't have a lot of, motivational tapes and courses back then. You had to figure it out on your own. And that's why I've always believed that you have to earn everything that you get in life. And so he'd always introduce me to these cassettes that he said, "Son, just listen to them. You're probably not going to know what they mean yet, but I want you to hear them at least once a month." And what I learned after years of listening to these cassettes is he was wanting me to listen to stories that people told in a very structured way that really defined what he called and what I call the immigrant perspective. That perspective of starting over, and knowing that you're coming to a new country with nothing but faith, hope, and love, and that you have opportunity all around you, and that you see opportunity in everything. That's what influenced me. And yes, I'm proud of my education, but my education comes from my dad. It comes from my parents, who fought hard to give me the chance to do something with myself. You know, I think education's the greatest thing in the world. And hopefully you'll have a chance to learn more about the education that we provide at the Center for Hispanic Leadership in our Hispanic Training Center. And I want you to be educated, and I want this center to help you reach your goals and your dreams and your aspirations. But what I learned, especially with greater appreciation now than ever before, is that when you learn how to survive, when you learn from the stories that your parents went through, start taking them to heart, because they're teaching you what no one else can teach you, what no book can teach you. It's what life teaches you. And so I don't know what kind of relationship that you have with your extended family. I'm sure you have a good relationship with your immediate family, and even if you don't, or you're trying to find an excuse to create a more meaningful one, just ask them. Ask them about their story, because every one of us has a story. And our parents and grandparents have the richest legacies of all. They have lived through things that only the one that's lived them can understand them. But through their stories, you get hope, and you start understanding why you think the way you do. You start to understand why you see things that others don't. You start to understand why family is so important to you. You start to understand why giving is part of your DNA. You start to understand why you have this natural entrepreneurial spirit and see the ability to reinvent every day. You'll understand why you're different. And being different is good. And being a Hispanic is extraordinarily powerful. So my inspiration for helping Hispanics really resides from the lessons that I learned from my family, from my father, from the struggles that they had to go through. And so I share that with you because you can learn all about my background. You can learn all about the things I've said, all the things that I've done in my life, my success story. You could read my bio. You could read anything you want about me. But at the end of the day, I am who I am because I believe in my culture. And I believe that Hispanics are at a point right now where we're growing so fast, yet there isn't enough infrastructure, resources, people who really understand us. And believe me, this is not playing the card of the victim. That's exactly what I'm telling you not to do. It's looking at the opportunities around us to do something, to maybe think about who we are as a community and how we can start rallying around each other, not for our benefit only, but for the benefit that we can bring to others just because we bring different types of things to the table. And that's really what my father taught me more than anything. He said, you will go through education and you'll get trained in your company and you're going to read a lot of books and you're going to acquire a lot of wisdom. But at the end of the day, just translate what you learned into the things that I'm trying to teach you. And when he did that, he gave me a different lens to look through. I just didn't take things at face value and started to run with them. I started to translate what I was being taught back to who I am as a Hispanic and the culture and the things that have been inspired by my culture. I love stories and I live stories, and I love to share your story. Send me an email. Let's continue the conversation and begin to share all of our experiences with one another. You can send it to me at glenn@centerforhispanicleadership.com. GLENN @centerforhispanicleadership.com.